This is the second video for April 20. I have explained till proprietary ratio. Now going to total assets to debt ratio. Okay. So the ratio itself says it is total assets divided by long-term debts. Madam, how will we know long-term debts? I told you in this chapter the word debt means long-term debt. Unless until specified total debt. If it is written total debt, then it is current liabilities plus non-current liabilities. So the ratio itself says total assets divided by long-term debts. Okay. So now we can automatically jump to significance. When numerator is total assets, a higher ratio is always better. A lower ratio is always dangerous. Okay. This ratio, I am going to the explanation. This ratio measures the extent of the coverage of long-term debts by assets, which means how much assets we have to repay our liabilities. If we have more assets, we can sell off our assets and repay our liabilities. So the company will calculate this ratio. Lenders and creditors will also calculate this ratio. The higher ratio, see it is given here, total assets by long-term debts. The higher ratio indicates that assets have been mainly financed by owners fund. Owners fund means equity. And the longer term and the long-term loan is adequately covered by assets, which means a higher ratio states the company has more equity and less loan. And whatever loan the company has borrowed, it is in a good position to repay the loan. It is better to take the net assets instead of total assets for computing this ratio also. It is observed that in that case, the ratio is the reciprocal of the debt to capital employed ratio. You need not go into this. Study only total assets to long-term debts ratio. Okay. What they say is that instead of total assets, from total assets you can subtract the current liabilities. So if you take only total assets minus current liabilities divided by long-term debts, this is the reciprocal of debt to capital employed ratio. What is debt to capital employed ratio? Here. So here if you get 0.25 is to 1, there the answer is 1 is to 0.25. Now again you will get confused. You stick on only to this formula. Okay. Significance, I have already told you, a high ratio signifies the company has sufficient fund to repay its liabilities. Now you may ask, madam, why significance is required? We will by heart the formula. Children, sometimes they will ask you to calculate the formula and then they will ask you to comment on the position of the firm. So you have to comment whether the firm is in a good position or not. See question number 9, debt equity ratio, total assets to debt ratio, proprietary ratio and debt to capital ratio. They have asked you to calculate. So study all the illustrations till illustration 9. Illustration 9 you have to solve in your notebook. Now whenever I say solve, read the illustration, apply the formula, understand and write. Don't blindly copy. You are in 12th standard, high time you have to understand and write. Don't copy blindly. Solve illustration 9 in your notebook. Now don't directly jump to illustration 9, children. You have to write you have to write tomorrow's date. Then you have to write heading solvency ratio. Then you have to write each and every ratio which I have taught you till now. You have to write the ratio name. You have to write the formula. Then you have to write in one line, a high ratio is good and the low ratio is bad, or a high ratio is risky, a low ratio is safe. Like that you have to write. Only after you have written this for all the 4 ratios, you have to go to illustration 9 and solve illustration 9. Okay. Coming to illustration 10. For solving illustration 10, last time I gave you a set of notes. If NR is greater than DR, then an equal amount when subtracted from NR and DR will increase the ratio. When NR or an equal amount added to NR and DR will decrease the ratio. I gave you that formula, isn't it? The same formula is applicable to illustration 10, but NR is not greater than DR. See, numerator is less and denominator is more. So here those 4 points will apply in reverse. So you assume something and then you have to solve. So we will see illustration 10. You just understand illustration 10, need not copy it in your notebook. The debt equity ratio of X Limited is 0.5:1. Which of the following would increase or decrease or not change the debt equity ratio? So what is debt equity ratio? On the numerator you have debt and on the denominator you have equity. Here it is given further issue of equity shares. So when new equity shares are issued, our denominator will increase. I'm sorry children, sorry for this disturbance. When the denominator increases, what happens? The ratio will decrease. It is easy. But they have assumed. What they have assumed? They have assumed that the debt is 5 lakh and equity is 10 lakhs. 5 by 10. Now 5 by 10 is 1 by 2. 1 by 2 is actually 0.5 by 1. If you divide 1 by 2, then you will get 0.5 as your answer. Okay, that is what is this. So that is 5 by 10. Now they assume that the company has issued 1 lakh worth equity shares. So what will happen? It will become 5 by 11 lakhs. Earlier we had 10 lakhs. 10 plus 1, 11 lakhs. The ratio has decreased to 0.45. Hence the ratio will decrease. And when debt equity ratio decreases, it is good for the firm. Second, cash received from debtors. Cash is a current asset. Debtor is also a current asset. So this will have no effect on the ratio. So you have to write no effect or no change. We are talking about long-term debt and equity, that is shareholders fund. Current items do not play any role. Next, sale of goods on cash basis. Again, sale of goods on cash basis will have no effect because goods are going out and cash is coming in. It is only current in nature. It is not liquid in. It has got nothing to do with solvency position. Fourth one, redemption of debentures. Redemption means repayment and debentures are non-current liabilities, that is debt component. When debentures are repaid, cash goes out and debentures also get reduced. So when debentures get reduced, the debt 0.5 debt, that is this 5 lakhs will get reduced. Numerator gets reduced. When numerator reduces, the ratio will decrease. They have assumed that 1 lakh rupees worth debentures are getting repaid. So 5 lakhs minus 1 lakh, 4 lakhs divided by 10 lakhs equity. The answer is 0.4. So the ratio is decreasing. Those who are good enough need not assume anything. Directly you can write reduce. Then fifth one, purchase of goods on credit. When you purchase goods on credit, your current liability increases and goods come inside. Debt equity ratio is only long term, not current. So whether it is current asset or current liability, there is no change, unchanged. Okay children. Now going to interest coverage ratio, the last ratio of solvency ratios topic. So after writing the heading solvency ratio, after writing the 4 formulas, each ratio's formula, each ratio's significance, then you have to write illustration 9. After solving illustration 9, you have to write interest coverage ratio, write the formula and write the significance. What is interest coverage ratio? Look at the formula. Net profit before interest and tax, net profit before interest and tax divided by interest on long-term loans. Long-term debts means long-term loans. So how to arrive at net profit before interest and tax? Sometimes in the question it will be given. If it is not given in the question, then you will be given with the net profit of the firm. From the net profit, first you have to subtract tax. Once you have subtracted tax, you will get net profit before interest. Profit before, sorry children, you will get profit before